Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. Senate President Bukola Saraki returns to the Code of Conduct Tribunal to defend 3 counts of 18 counts brought against him by the EFCC. Former Minister of the FCT, Jumoke Akinjide, moves to enter a plea bargain arrangement with the EFCC on the 650 million naira laundering case against her. Ahead of the 2019 polls, the Joint Committee of the National Assembly agrees on changing the sequence of elections in the Electoral Act. And many are felt trapped as the 6.4 magnitude earthquake hits the Taiwanese city of Hurling. Now, for more on our top stories and others, please visit our website, channelstv.com and youtube.com/channelsweb. Also, please log on to m.channelstv.com to watch us on your mobile device or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS, and Windows devices from their respective stores. The Channels TV and Channels 24 apps will give you access to news and updates. You'll also have access to the Eyewitness feature, with which you can share those pictures, videos, or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu, and then follow the instructions. And here are some of the pictures and videos you sent to our Eyewitness portal today. Let's begin with this video from the Pt.2 Alakwara area of Lagos, showing the new sanitation agency at work. Our Eyewitness reports that men of the agency arrived with their collecting truck and a patrol van, calling on all in the neighborhood to dispose their waste. She commends these efforts, which she says she's sure will clean up the state after earlier pictures showing garbage all over it. She's, however, asking that the efforts be sustained. We move on to Benue State with this image of an overloaded motorcycle in Makurdi, the state capital. Our Eyewitness reporter wants the Federal Road Safety Corps to do more at stopping such acts. And we end with this picture from Adamawa State showing the aftermath of what our Eyewitness reporter calls a religious crisis. He says the incident occurred at the Modibo Adama University of Technology, Yola. He wants improved security to prevent a repeat of such lawlessness. Thank you for sending in these pictures and video. Please keep them coming. The release of the 2019 polls timetable has clearly shown that the electioneering process has effectively begun. Eligible voters across the country are also advised to register for their voters' cards, which will qualify them to participate in the voting exercise. INEC's continuous voter registration exercise is still ongoing, and the Commission says it has not stopped registering voters. There are, however, a series of concerns from Nigerians about issues relating to logistics, long hours of waiting, and the reissuance of the voters' cards. Channels Television is monitoring the process across the country, and our political correspondent, Sheun Okimbaloye, has that report.
The day is young, the sun still shy, and the atmosphere is a primary school in the heart of Lagos capital, Ikeja. St. Peter's School, Alausa, as young men and women, and even the older ones, one after the other, call here. It is one of the designated centers for INEC continuous voter registration exercise. Their faces may not be too bright and perhaps tell of what they have gone through in having their names on the voters' register. The anxiety come the weight, plus the effort. Different strokes for different folks. Not good stories about INEC logistics in the exercise.
This is my second day now. Maximum of 30 people in a day. 30 in a day. You can see the crowd.
When we came, we had to write our names too. So for everybody that wrote their name yesterday, no one was attended to.
From the post here at the entrance, it's pretty clear the Electoral Umpire has reorganized itself. They have phased the exercise and moved it around from locations to another. About 5 kilometers away from here, still within Ikeja, the capital of the nation's commercial hub, the stories are nothing different. Let's leave Lagos for a moment and find out what is obtainable in other regions of the country. In Imo State, residents are asking INEC to address the shortage of materials and manpower, which has caused the slow pace of the registration. a visit to some of the registration centers in Owerri, the capital of Imo State. Queues are evident, and those who turn up are worried about logistics and timing of the exercise.
We've been here since 6 o'clock in this morning, you know. The challenge is just that, just because it's one system, had it been they will make it up to as in 2 or 3, it would have been more fast, understand?
And to the North Central region in Ilorin, Kwara State, INEC says 240,000 voters are yet to collect their permanent voter cards since last year, April. The INEC official in Kwara State is concerned about what he termed the attitude of an average Nigerian voter.
One of the reasons is that, you know, Nigerians, they always like rush hour. They want to wait until the last moment, and then they begin to scamper here and there.
Further north, in Bauchi State this time around, our monitoring reveals large turnout of women than men in most of the centers. They defy the scorching sun and eagerly wait on queues in an attempt to register. Some of the electorates say they come to the centers very early in the morning or sometimes at midnight in order to pull down their names, get a number, and wait for application forms to be distributed to them before they can register for that day.
Come out very early enough.
It has not been an easy task for the Electoral Umpire INEC in the continuous voter registration exercise, and neither has it been easy for millions of Nigerians who are anticipating the opportunity to get their names on the voter register. INEC says it has registered about 4 million people since 2017 to date. Well, with over 68 million voters in 2015, the hopes are that many more Nigerians will have their names on the voter register ahead of the crucial 2019 general elections. From Ikeja in Lagos, Shunwa Kimaloye reporting for Channels Television News.
Now let's expand the scope of our knowledge on this subject, and for that I'm being joined live from our studios in Abuja by the Director of INEC's Voter Education and Publicity, Mr. Oluwole Ostanze Uzi. Good evening and thanks for joining us on the news at 10.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Now, as you've probably been watching, the National Assembly has just accepted to change the sequencing of the elections in the Electoral Act. Does that have any bearing at all on INEC's plans for the elections, which are just about a year away?
Well, thank you. I would say it does, in the sense that we had last year issued a timetable and schedule of activities for the elections. Well, before then, announced the dates and the sequence for those elections. And if you recall, we had said that there will be 2 days of elections on February 16th and then 2 weeks later. But from what we're hearing now, the National Assembly seems to want to change that. But the process is still inchoate. They have not done so. It's a proposal which has to be laid before both houses of the National Assembly. And before it becomes law, it probably has to have the assent of the president. So we are studying the situation, but we'll await the outcome of it. It's difficult for us to comment one way or the other now. But from what I've seen, there will now be 3 days of elections. That has its own consequences on the finances, on the logistics and all the arrangements, the forward logistics, the reverse logistics, and it has its issues, but we have to wait for it to become law, and let's see what the law actually says when it's eventually passed.
In that case, let me bring you to something you can talk about and which you are sure about, and that's the continuous voter registration exercise. Now, from the pre-report that we watched there,
Yes.
People seem to have quite a number of complaints about the process, how long it takes, how laborious it is, and all that. Has this been the feedback that INEC has gotten since this exercise started? And if so, what is INEC doing about it?
Yes, we have received some of those reports. There have been mixed feelings from the stakeholders, but there's been some angst, some worry about the length of time it has taken most people, or some people, to get registered. After the first phase of the exercise, don't forget we commenced this exercise earlier on. After the first quarter of the exercise, we went back to drawing boards and we consulted with stakeholders. And the feedback, for example, was that there were not enough centers. So additional centers were actually created. We started the exercise with registration only going on in the area council and the local government INEC offices of the commission. But apparently, some of those locations are quite a distance from a lot of the prospective registrants. So we decentralized this and created a lot more centers. And each state was allowed to create a certain number of about 8 to 10 additional centers. And they determined the location based on what they perceived to be the demand and after doing a logistical survey and the requests from stakeholders. But thereafter, we still looked at the situation and adapted it again when we discovered that people clamored for a rotation of these centers. People deemed it very, very far from certain locations, and that it would be better if we rotated these centers, and that is what we have agreed to do. So basically, depending on the state, some people, they use one particular center for 4 or 5 days or a week, depending on the state, and then rotate it and go to another location, such that it will be an equitable distribution of the centers where you can actually register.
From time to time, we get to hear stories about this exercise either having been finished or about to be finished. And then, of course, we hear counter information that says the exercise is continuous until 60 days or 30 days before the elections actually take place. Which is it? I think you need to give the assurance to the voters or the prospective voters who want to register. When does this exercise actually end?
First of all, I'm quite pleased that I'm not aware of any mainstream media that carried the news that the Commission was going to end the exercise at the end of January. We only saw that in social media, and no mainstream media carried it because we don't know where that rumor actually emanated from. There was at no time did we say that the exercise will end at the end of January or any other time. The law is quite clear on this, and I think we have said repeatedly that the exercise will end 60 days to the election if we're using the Electoral Act as it is presently. But of course, as you said, it's undergoing a review, but I don't think it will be that particular part of the Act or section of the Act will be affected. But 60 days to the election, we must close the register because we must certify this register that we're going to use for the 2019 elections and hand it over to the political parties and publish the register. We cannot add more names to that register after it has been certified and published. So it's continuous. It's going to continue right till that time. Of course, at the end of the quarter, we will, for 5 days, display the names and particulars, the list of those who have registered in the preceding quarter. So there will be no registration, but that will be a period for claims and objections, so that if there are any corrections to be done, if your name has been wrongly spelled, your sex is wrongly accredited to you or things like that, then those things will be corrected in that 5, 6, 7 days period for the claims and objections. And thereafter, we'll again resume the capture of data.
Thank you very much for speaking with us. INEC's Director of Voter Education and Publicity, Mr. Oluwole Ostanze Uzi. Thank you very much for joining us. When the news at 10 returns, production of Nigeria's largest crude oil stream, Kwaibu crude, drops to lowest level since 2010. That will be on the business news. Please stay on with us.